What's up guys, it's your boy Dekkster here, and I know there were just nerfs announced, and it seems like there are going to be buffs as well coming on the 3rd of June. So nerfs on the 22nd of May and buffs on the 3rd of June. The meta is going to be wild, and it's going to be a really good time. So first off, let's talk about SnipSnap. SnipSnap is a card that's going to be rewarded to everybody just for signing in between June 3rd and July 1st. You will get a golden copy of it, and it's going to be considered a part of the Boomsday project, so it'll rotate when that set rotates. And SnipSnap, you're going to want this card. It seems bonkers. It's a 3-mana 2/3. It has a Death Rattle, summon 2 1/1 microbots. Also, it's a mech. So it's already kind of a 3-mana 4/5, which is nuts. It's great value. But on top of that, it's also magnetic, so you can equip it to other mechs. And then on top of that, it's also echo, which means you can play it as many times as you want that turn. So on turn 9, you can make a 9-mana 6/9, where when it dies, it's just gonna flood the board with microbots. I mean, that's just an example. Maybe you're just on turn 6 after you've Zilliax, maybe your Zilliax sticks. You just throw a couple of these on the Zilliax. Of course, there's that combo everyone's talking about where if you stick a mech and then on turn 5, you can Reckless Experimenter, making this a 0-mana echo, meaning you can just make a huge mech and OTK your opponent. Now I'm thinking maybe Blizz just didn't see this. I don't think anyone wants to get OTK'd on turn 5 or any turn they accidentally leave a mech up. And Blizzard has, almost 2 weeks to fix this. So hopefully they will fix it. They need to change the Reckless Experimenter, or they need to change this somehow, or it's gonna suck because it's so good. It's so good it's gonna suck, you know? But other than that, other than the ridiculous combo, this almost seems like a Zilliax in terms of how many decks it's going to be in. It's kind of good even if you're not really running that many other mechs. I mean, think of like the mech sort of bomb hunter that's out there right now. The non-bomb mech hunter would also run this. The glowstone tech mech paladins are gonna run this. Anything that has mechs, you're probably gonna wanna run this. All right, so we got card changes, we got buffs here. This is insane. If you don't count the elemental tag being added to Mountain Giant as a buff, this seems to be the first buff that Blizzard has ever implemented in Hearthstone. And I'm just gonna go from top to bottom here. I'm just reading off the website and giving my thoughts. We got Gloop Sprayer going from 8 mana to 7 mana. Now, Gloop Sprayer only seen in this meta if you're doing a Lucent Bark Druid, right? And even yet, it felt a bit clunky at 8 mana. There wasn't much you can do. So the fact that this goes to 7 mana means you can play Lucent Bark. And then if you have a Floop, he's going to be 3 mana, so you can Floop, which will make another Lucent Bark. And then you can Gloop Spray in the same turn that you Floop. So, maybe turn 9, you throw down your Lucent Bark. Turn 10, you go Floop, Gloop. And then boom, you got 4 Lucent Barks. Like that's pretty good. That's pretty dirty, right? And Lucent Bark might become a bit better now because rogues were one of the hardest matchups. And now that rogue may be taking a back seat, it seems like maybe Lucent Bark might be a viable archetype for Druid. Also, the fact that this is going to 7 mana seems like a buff as far as the consistency of 8 drops. You're really not going to want to evolve things into 7 drops because you got Giggling in there, you got this now. There's a ton of bad 7 drops, I think, I don't know. And then 8 drops are generally going to be good because usually when you evolve something into an 8, you don't want to get 4/4 worth of stats. So from that front, seems cool. I like the change. I'm hoping it puts some life into Lucent Bark Druid or some other sort of Druid I'm not thinking of. But yeah, pretty cool, right? Like we got Mulch Muncher going down to 9 mana from 10. And no one really runs Mulch Muncher. This doesn't seem like a big deal to me. I don't think this is gonna warrant running it in Token Druid or anything like that. Honestly, the biggest thing to me, again, seems to be the evolve pools or the big bad voodoo sort of effects. So now if you evolve an 8 into a 9, it could be a mech with rush, right? Or maybe you play a walking fountain, you slap it into a couple things, it's got big bad voodoo on it, and it turns into a Mulch Muncher. That's fantastic. So the 9 drops seem to be strengthened a bit here, while the 10 drops seem to be weakened a bit. Usually when you evolved a random 10, or maybe you Conjure's Calling on a Sea Giant, you'd be happy to get a Mulch Muncher, right? And at this point, you're not going to get Mulch Munchers anymore in that 10 pool. So I'm happy about that from that perspective. Maybe it actually ends up hurting Mage a little bit, although, they're still going to get Deathwings and 4/12s and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, I don't see anyone running Mulch Muncher. I feel like if it was an 8 mana 8/8, you'd probably run it in some sort of token druid. I think it'd make it worth experimenting with. But at that point, it would make the 8 pools just ridiculous. All right, so we got Necromechanic going from a 5-mana 3/6 to a 4-mana 3/6. This body's very, very similar to Shaw, who is difficult to deal with. Dropping it from 5 to 4 is huge. A lot of people were experimenting with this early on. I know I was in like Oblivitron Mech Hunters, and it felt pretty good, but it was definitely a cuttable card. Now that it's 4 mana, I think people are probably going to revisit this and see if it's worth. And I think it honestly might be. This is a card that needs removal, similar to Shaw, and your opponent will go to great lengths to remove it, because if they don't, turn 5 could be pretty bad. So I'm very excited about this. I do want to mess around with Oblivitron Mech Hunter. I think that's going to be a pretty good archetype after these buffs and these nerfs to Rogue. It's going to be pretty cool. Now, Flark's Boomzooka going from 8 mana to 7 mana. I don't really see any reason to run this deck still. Maybe you might mess around with it in like some sort of mech build where it can maybe pull your Whelps, pull your Oblivitron, and then they die. But then what if it pulls a minion you don't really want? I don't know. This is a fun card, but I still don't see how it's competitively viable at all. But maybe some experimentation with the Death Rattle. This is a cool little buff, but I still don't think anyone's going to play this card. It's gonna be fun to revisit it again though, see if there's any cool archetypes out there that could benefit off this 1 mana reduction. All right, unexpected results going from 4 to 3 mana. I don't think you really wanna like use this card still, but it does make the fact that you're getting a lot of random spells with Mage right now, it makes it easier to dump from the hand. It makes it less painful to get this off of like a Mana Cyclone or something like that. So I see this kind of buffing Mage as a class if they have any random spells, right? I don't see this being a card you want to actually put in your deck, but now it's pretty nice to get it off of a random generation. You can now get it off Magic Trick as well, right? We got Pocket Galaxy with a huge buff here going from 7 mana to 5 mana. Now at 7 mana, this seemed way too slow. A lot of people were messing with it. I mean, it's fun if you can manage to land it before you've drawn your Antonidas. Getting a 1 mana Antonidas is insane. So the fact that it's at 5 mana, I don't know if it warrants a spot in a deck, but once again, just getting random spells from Mage it's a thing, and sometimes you get a 7 mana Pocket Galaxy and you play it anyway. But now it being 5 mana, it's a buff to Mage in general. And yeah, who knows, maybe there can be some sort of big Mage that ends up running this, pulling out cheap Tonys, cheap Alexstrasas, maybe some cheap Maligoses and stuff like that. Maybe we can make a fun little Maligos Mage deck. We got Crystology going from 2 mana to 1 mana. This is huge because I already love Crystology. It's such a strong card as it is, and the fact that it's 1 mana, you can play it on 1, and then you can play whatever you draw on turn 2. Maybe turn 1 Crystology into a turn 2 Galvanizer. And I'm sure you guys have been seeing that sort of glowstone tech Mech Paladin that runs Crystology, and with rogues being gone, no more saps, you don't feel as scared to go tall unless silences become part of this meta, which they may. Yeah, I mean, this card, 1 mana draw 2, it's consistent, it's very good. Also pulls Prelate, right? Pulls Acolytes of Pain, pulls Bloodsail Corsairs, pulls Galvanizers, pulls Skaterbots, pulls a lot of good things. It might even warrant running this as card draw in a more sort of aggressive Paladin list. Like, I mean, it pulls Secret Keepers. But yeah, I'm most excited about it going towards sort of mech builds. And of course, it also strengthens OTK as an archetype. It also kind of buffs Prismatic Lens. Maybe the minion you draw is now going to be 1 mana instead of 2, but that's not too big of a deal. We got Glowstone Technician going from 6 mana to 5 mana. And this is another card that I was excited to mess around with after the Rogue nerf because of the Glowstone Tech Mech Paladins. It did feel a little expensive to play on turn 6, but then that turn 7, you just build a huge mech, punch them, and maybe lifesteal it back if you played a Lightforge Blessing as well, or you played a Ziliax or something. And now that it's going to be able to happen a turn sooner, like, this is amazing. I do think the Glowstone Tech Mech Paladin will be a viable archetype, and the fact that Crystology is buffed alongside this is huge. I mean, the whole aesthetic, the whole theme, he's a technician, he's buffing up your mechs, you're making a huge mech. It all goes together, and I think that's kind of what Blizzard wants, and I am excited for this. All right, we got Priest with extra arms going from 3 mana to 2 mana. Now, the only deck I was actually running extra arms in was Villain Priest, and Villain Priest felt really good, actually. It surprised me. And the only deck it struggled against was Rogue, which is getting nerfed. So with Rogue getting nerfed, Extra Arms getting buffed, will Villain Paladin actually be a consideration? I think so. This is essentially Blessing of Kings, but more versatile, right? I'm gonna go ahead and say that More Arms is also 2 mana. So you get a 4 mana +4/+4, but you can split it up as you want. So it's better than Blessing of Kings. And Blessing of Kings is a huge card. I love this. Priest is struggling right now. And hopefully, you know, this kind of helps. You can also curve from like a cleric into an Extra Arms now. So on turn 2, having a 3/5, that's pretty good. We got Cloning Device going from 2 mana to 1 mana. I don't think anyone wants to play this card still. It does not seem very good to me. Some people were saying maybe you can use it for cycle, maybe in like a Nomi Priest deck, but in my experience, your hand size is generally pretty big. And you're actually scared of overdrawing sometimes, right? So if you're getting a random minion in your hand, what if it's, you know, a 5 mana minion or even higher and you can't actually dump it? So I don't see this being used as a cycle tool, and I don't see this being used in general. But if you get this card randomly, it's obviously a little bit better. Maybe it's just a buff to Burgle Rogues. We got Pogo Hopper going from 2 mana to 1 mana. And this doesn't seem like too big of a deal because I haven't really played any Pogo Hopper, but people seem to play it and then bounce it back to their hand, which gives it a 2 mana reduction through like Shadow Step, maybe a Waggle Pick, or like this cheat death sort of things. So if you were to use those on a 2 mana minion, they're 0 mana. If you use them on a 1 mana minion, they're also 0 mana. Now maybe this ties together with like Spirit of the Shark and the Lab Recruiter to make some sort of battle cry deck. The Witchwood Pipers are going to consistently pull the Pogo Hoppers now, which means you can use Lab Recruiter instead of like a Togwaggle scheme, which may be a bit more consistent. And then if you already have your Pogo Hoppers in your hand, maybe the Piper is going to pull the Recruiters. So maybe you drop a Shark down and then you can Pogo Hopper and Lab Recruit those Pogo Hoppers back into your deck. There's also the bonus that Magic Carpet gives this Rush now. So you can have some huge Pogo Hoppers that also have Rush, which is pretty nice. But I don't know if it's enough to really make Pogo viable, but I can see some interesting play testing. Might be fun. Violet Haze going from 3 mana to 2 mana. Who actually runs this? I don't think anybody actually runs this, right? It's just a card that you sometimes get in Rogue Mirrors when you play Blink Fox. But I guess they're mostly doing this so that you can prep and Violet Haze in the same turn. Don't know what else to say about this. Seems bad to me. Still. We got Stormbringer going from 7 mana to 6 mana, which is huge because you get a lot of random spells when you play Shaman. You often get Stormbringer in your hand and you're like, oh, this is cool, but it's 7 mana, right? And that's expensive. Now it's 6 and maybe it feels less clunky in the hand. So yeah, you'll probably be happy to get this randomly, but is it worth a spot in your deck? I don't really think so. If you're playing an aggro sort of token deck, you'd probably rather have a Bloodlust. And if you're playing any other sort of, I don't know, like Big Shaman or Control Shaman, I don't think you don't want this in there. So an indirect sort of buff to Hagatha. And yeah, I don't think you're going to see any token build with this at all. Although now you can Voltaic Burst and Stormbringer on turn 7. 2 random legendaries for 7 mana. That does not seem worth. All right, we got Thunderhead going up from a 3/5 to a 3/6. Now, Thunderhead was already a great card, still seeing play in a bunch of Shaman builds. But the fact that it's getting that Shaw stat line, that Necromechanic stat line, it's a big deal. It's definitely going to be played a little bit more, right? Because it's hard to remove minions with 6 health. I'm happy about this. I love Thunderhead as a card, and I'm really excited to mess around with it a little bit more. So Warlock, we got Spirit Bomb going from 2 mana to 1 mana. And I mean, this would have been cool last expansion. I think maybe it helps in Wild. I don't know. I don't play much Wild. But in Standard, there's not that much self-healing available anymore. You've lost Gul'dan, you've lost the Spellstones, and I don't think you want to lose 4 health just to kill something. I'd rather run a Shadow Bolt for 2 more mana. I don't really see a point where you would want to actually run this in your deck. I think for Zoo, you'd also rather run a Soulfire, or maybe maybe it's a indirect buff to Shriek, because you don't care if you discard it in certain situations. And in some situations, you really just gotta remove a Thug or something like that. But yeah, I don't think you run this thing. Dr. Morrigan, this is huge. 8 mana to 6 mana. That is a lot. That's a 25% mana reduction. Biggest thing I think of first off the bat is it strengthens the 8 pool yet again, removing the dreaded Morrigan from that 8 pull, which you don't want a 5/5 for 8 mana generally. Now, you don't mind getting a 5/5 for 6 mana. That's pretty decent. I don't know if this enables some sort of plot twist Warlock deck, which I hope it does, but I mostly see this as a buff to Shaman. More so the big bad Archmage Shaman, right? You play big bad Archmage, it pulls a Morrigan, your Morrigan dies, it pulls out a Walking Fountain or something, or an Alakir. Generally, anything you pull out of a big Shaman, you're gonna be happy it was pulled out. Pulling out, I don't know, a Batterhead or something, like that'd be pretty sick, right? But as far as it exciting me for something in Warlock, I can't really think of anything. Let me know if I'm missing anything here. We got Security Rover going from a 2/5 to a 2/6. I'm not too excited about this. This card's already frustrating for me to play against. It just seems like they're usually getting, you know, 2 or 3 mechs off of this. And now maybe they're gonna get one more. This card's really annoying, and Warrior received no nerfs, and instead they're getting a buff. I don't think this warrants actually running the card in your deck, but usually people play this because they generated it randomly, and they're gonna continue to generate it randomly, and it's gonna be better than before. So not too excited about this one. Also not too excited about Beryllium Nullifier going up from a 3/8 to a 4/8. Why are they buffing this card? I have no idea. This thing's already frustrating to deal with. Already got that huge health where you can't really remove it. Maybe it's a buff to BGH, because if they slap it on a Ziliax, now has 7 attack, and you can BGH it. I don't know. Why did they do this? I don't know. This card's annoying. But yeah, that's about it. I'm so excited that they're buffing cards. I hope this becomes a trend. I hope they start doing this. Maybe even every month they can just buff a couple cards. They don't gotta nerf things. Just buff some stuff. Make some new builds happen. So, yeah. Hope you guys are excited for the nerfs. Hope you guys are excited for the buffs. And I hope you guys enjoyed this content. Let me know what you think of the buffed cards in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you do enjoy my content. Don't forget to hit that sub button. Good luck on ladder and stay hydrated.